Welcome back, everybody. This is our first session for the day, and I'm excited to have a couple of gentlemen from a couple of different buying groups. From AAP, I have Wayne Boese, who's the Vice President of Sales, and then from APCI, I have Mark Million, who's also the Vice President of Sales. Gentlemen, welcome to Climb, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
So I use this term buying group. We hear buying groups, group purchasing organizations, buying cooperatives. Are they the same? What's the difference? Can one of you tell me or tell us what the difference is?
Sure, I'll start. No problem. So yeah, there are differences in them. AAP is a buying group. We're a cooperative, a buying cooperative, and any profits of the organization go back to our members at the end of the year in the form of a dividend. And so that's a cooperative. There's also just buying groups out there which are formed by it's probably a for-profit organization where somebody has formed a group and any of the profits those organizations keep internally because they are privately owned. And then there's other groups that call themselves a buying group that might be just 5, 10, 15 store owners that will get together and negotiate a deal with probably a wholesaler most likely formed around that arena as just a group. And there may or may not be any dollars that flow through that organization, but they do consider themselves a buying group. So there are different little distinctions there.
Yeah, okay. I agree with Wayne. I mean, I tend to use them, the GPO, the buying group, cooperative interchangeably. APCI is a true cooperative as well. Our members buy stock in APCI, so they own the company, and then they can earn dividends, based on their generic purchases through the wholesaler.
Okay, so there's a handful, or are there a lot of buying groups in the U.S. then, or?
Yeah, there are too many buying groups,
yeah,
Brad.
There's a lot.
There's way too many groups, and we're too fractured. We're too fragmented. The number of times and over my 28 years I've been involved in this industry that I've heard pharmacy owners say, "Hey, we all need to get together. We all need to get together and do something. Negotiate with the wholesaler, get together and start a PBM, or get together and negotiate against the PBMs or whatever the case may be." They all say we need to get together. But we practice fragmentation. We talk about consolidation, but we practice fragmentation. And, even from our own organization, the number of times we've had, groups of pharmacies split off and I'm going to go do my own thing. We're going to take 10 stores and we're going to do our own thing. And man, just recently I counted up somewhere around 55 groups that I could think of that are organized out there in some fashion. And then there's a whole bunch of other groups they're not legally organized probably. But we have too many groups, and we need to stop that. We need to consolidate. I don't know what that right number is. It might be 10, might be 12.
Might be 2.
Might be 2.
Well, it's really buying power. It's hard to have a lot of buying power when you're that fragmented, I guess. That's becomes a huge issue, really.
Right.
Well, and I think
20,000. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Wayne.
There's 25,000 pharmacies still out there, independents out there, and we're all still just fragmented. Sorry, Mark.
Right.
Well, and I think you're going to see, we've seen tremendous consolidation in the wholesale drug industry, the regionals, the independents, the buying group segment. We haven't seen that type of consolidation, although there has been some, but I do think you're going to see, more consolidation in the next, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing because as we were talking earlier, I was in that part of the industry earlier in my career in the wholesale side, and I was a vice president of a independent drug wholesalers group, which is was a co-op of 68 of the 72 independent drug wholesalers in the early 90s, and of course virtually all of those wholesalers have been gobbled up. I mean, there's very few independent wholesalers left, and I know that this happened because of buying power in the end. They couldn't compete, and they can't compete. It's very difficult to compete, say it that way, today for some kind of a small wholesaler. So that makes sense. What do you have any feel for what percentage of pharmacies are part of a buying group?
And I think Wayne said earlier, maybe 90% plus. I agree. I think the vast majority are part of a buying group. They do see the advantage, the benefits of being part of a group. It's a good question. I don't know that. I don't know the answer, but I would guess it's north of 90% easily.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned, even though there's 90% that are a part of a buying group, the buying groups vary dramatically. So let's talk about the types of services that and functions that the both of you see with your organization, what you offer, the benefits you offer, and that you think buying groups should be offering their customers. Let's start with you, Mark.
Well, our main function is to support our members, pure and simple. We have a saying we like to offer a solution from the moment a member flips on his lights in the morning to locking the door that night. Any issue that he faces, we want to have a solution for. We want to have industry experts. We want to have staff members that can address and correct whatever issues they find. And also, we love the wholesalers, but it's never a bad thing to have additional checks and balances on the wholesaler. Just another set of eyes and ears, making sure everything's being done the way that it's supposed to.
Okay. Wayne, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. As a group as we are, and as Mark and APCI are, is we do take admin fees from the wholesaler, and that's what we run our organization on. And so we need to bring value back to our pharmacies for those. So what are those value adds, back to the organization? I think that's what everybody needs to look at their buying group and saying, okay, I'm part of this group. I'm part of this group for something.
Okay. So, I mean, what are some of the problems that you are solving? Mark, you mentioned some problems that you help them solve. What are some of those problems?
Well, we used to have our own PSAO, and we merged with Access Health and formed HMA Health Mart Atlas. So, and again, it's a problem because it's so complex, but we're a mediator, between the member and the PSAO. There's always going to be issues that arise, whether you're chasing money, chasing claims, whatever the case may be. So that mediation between the pharmacy and the PSAO, is a big benefit, I think, of what buying groups can offer. Reconciliation, is everybody reconciling their claims? We would argue they should be. We have a reconciliation service that members can take advantage of. Audits are still a big problem. We've got audit services, try to prevent and then try to chase and retain the money that they're chasing, trying to come after.
Yeah, and I think data too is a big part of what things that we're helping our pharmacies with is data mining and understanding what that information is they have in their own pharmacy systems and using them, showing them how to use that to benefit the pharmacy, increase their profits from that direction. There's huge opportunity there for pharmacies that they don't get, and I totally agree with you on the PSAO arena, the buy side. We also have our own distribution, our own warehouse, and even though we do have that, there's often times where we tell our pharmacies to not buy from us. It's the best interest to buy everything from the wholesaler. There's other times where we tell them, hey, it does benefit you to buy from our warehouse. So giving them that kind of advice, giving them that kind of bottom line advice where, hey, it's your benefit. We're doing stuff for your benefit, your bottom line, not for the organization, not for the group.
So let me delve a little deeper into that. What types of products are you carrying in your warehouse? Do you carry some front end merchandise, or is it all pharmaceutical?
Yeah, very little front end. Most all of it's pharmaceutical. We carry about 2,000 generic items, a couple hundred branded items, and we buy all those directly from the manufacturer on the generics. And so we only buy items where we know we can save our pharmacy money. We're not just going to bring product in just to say, hey, we got product on the shelf. If we find an opportunity in the market where there's price where we can bring it in and get a good rebate to the pharmacy, we'll stock that. So our pharmacies know if it's in the warehouse, purchase it from that direction. But again, we're only going to do that if that's what makes sense for the pharmacy. It's really, really important for the pharmacies to understand this outside buying. I think everybody's gotten a little transactional. I shouldn't say a lot transactional over the last several years with reimbursements and everything. If they lose money on a prescription, right away they're going to go look to see if they can buy that product someplace else, and you can get yourself in quite a quagmire with your own prime vendor agreement with your wholesaler you've got if you do too much of that based upon trying to win every transaction. You just can't do that. It just can't do that anymore.
Yeah, there's a fine line, no question about it, no question.
So for those that aren't using a buying group like yours, what are the key differences at a pharmacy that isn't leveraging a buying group like yours, what are some of the key differences they would experience in their ordering experience?
Well, I would argue they're probably not buying as well as they could be by being part of a GPO. And I would argue, standing alone, facing, the PBM pressures, the audit pressures, you just are putting a tremendous hardship on yourself trying to do, everything for yourself on an island instead of, hitching your wagon to a group and getting all the resources, the benefits, the value, that we try to bring to our members.
Yeah, there's so many of those day-to-day things, as Mark mentioned earlier, just helping the pharmacy through. There's issues always with a wholesaler, no matter who you have. You need to have a primary wholesaler, but and sometimes all of our role is simply is going to the wholesaler and finding, hey, what you're being told by your wholesaler is correct, and sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's enforcing an agreement or digging deeper for them. A lot of times we are just that second point of go-to. Hey, this is what maybe I've got a new rep, a very inexperienced representative from the wholesaler, and they don't know things about the industry. Well, they can come to us. We can go to other people in the organization, get the answer, get the problem solved. Those kind of things, I think, is really a big part that we take off of their shoulders. There's so many owners out there that are, well, hey, they're independents. And I've always said about, the co-op, whether it was United Drugs I was with before we merged and created AAP or AAP, that the greatest thing about us is we're a co-op of independent pharmacies. And the worst thing about us is we're a co-op of independent pharmacies.
Yeah.
Independents are independent, right? And they're going
Right.
to do things because, they're independent minded. But a lot of times too, they'll have the attitude of, I don't want to deal with the big three wholesalers. And you're really not, as being part of a group. You're dealing with the cooperative. You're dealing with the buying group. You're not dealing directly with the big three wholesaler. You're dealing with a smaller organization that can fight on your behalf.
Well, and I think that's, I talk to independent pharmacists, part of my job. I talk all the time to independent pharmacists, of course, just like the two of you. And, they're overwhelmed. I mean, I think that's it. They feel overwhelmed with everything that's going on. So it seems to me having groups like yours that have their back, that can help them through some of these things, the different fees, the chargebacks, the audits, all of those things that are happening makes a lot of sense. So what are some of the additional services that groups like yours offer?
Well, I think you can't minimize personal relationships. I think, and Wayne would agree, just having people that your members know, they know they can pick up the phone, they know they're going to be accessible, and they're going to get the answer to the questions they have is, you just can't put a price tag on that. The PSAO help, the audit recon we've talked about, clinical services. I mean, we got to generate non-dispense revenue. I mean, with the declining reimbursements, everything we're facing there that we talked about, you've got to have clinical programs in place and try to, replace some of the losses. We're trying to do that, obviously. The business expertise. Some members some independent pharmacy owners run a fantastic business. Some, I think they would, be the first in line. Yep, I need some help. I didn't learn this in pharmacy school, whatever the case may be. So, we try to give them that business expertise and help them run a better business. Front end, some are discounting the front end, writing it off. We don't think that's the way to go. A circular program, a dollar program, merchandising, marketing help, and certainly advocacy and representation are so important in this day and time.
I think one of the best compliments I ever got when I walked into one of our member pharmacies and I was waiting to talk to the owner, and one of their front end personnel said, "Hey, Catherine, there's a salesperson here to see you." And she looked up, she goes, "That's not a salesperson. That's my AAP rep." That I'm there to help them with their business, and I'm there to help them, with anything, with any questions. I think Mark mentioned it earlier, with any questions, any needs, anything that's happening within the pharmacy. Quite frequently we're asked questions about programs and services. We have a lot of different vendors that are part of the AAP program. I think we've got over 50 preferred vendors, that we have vetted and their services they provide, and we can direct them pharmacies to, hey, which ones will work best for you, or here, call these 2 or 3 vendors that we have that. And then we also give them referrals. Here, this pharmacy is using this system, they're using that system, they're using this program, and give them that kind of support that you just can't get on your own.
Well, and as I was listening to both of you, one of the thoughts that comes to my mind is that there's so much focus on the pharmacy, the prescriptions themselves, um, but as you were mentioning, Mark, clinical services have become a huge must in pharmacy, and I would totally agree with you that it's a big mistake to write off your front end. You may have to adapt and change your front end. The day for a lot of pharmacies of the huge front end, those days are gone unless you're in rural America. But if you're in an urban setting, that's more convenience, I think, is what we're seeing. But to write it off is to throw away revenue that has a pretty high profit margin. And so I think some focus there is still very, very important. One of the things that we've talked a lot about in Climb is drug-induced nutrient depletion recommendations because of the high profitability. And one of the things that we're seeing, Amazon is here and it's real. And yes, they can't deliver same day in most places across America and probably won't be able to anytime really soon. But you can, as an independent pharmacy, you can deliver same day. Now, the problem is that if you're only delivering prescriptions, then you added another cost, right? So you really need to be delivering something else, I think, along that way, and starting to get pharmacies to think that way, starting to get pharmacies to look at what they should be and can be delivering along with those prescriptions is an important thing. So I just kind of I just made a long statement. Sorry, got on my soapbox on this one, but are you looking at programs? Do you have programs that deal more with clinical services and front end, looking at the front end of the business?
Well, we do, and I'm sure Wayne does as well. I mean, you look at the chains of the world. How many times do they put a circular in a mailbox during a year? 52 times. So they still see the value, the merit in doing that. We've got a circular program that I would put up against anybody. It's just it's top notch. It's a great circular, and we offer it to members once a month is all that we ask them to do it. Again, we understand the chains are doing 52 a year. We're asking them for the commitment to do one a month and drive the traffic back into their store. No question.
Yeah, too many pharmacy owners have given up on the front end and they gave it away. It's not that somebody took it away from them, they gave it away. They didn't do anything with that front end and not understanding that front end of the business. As you said, Brad, the profitability there. I came up in the chain environment. I came up in working from high school through the chains and through college. Did retail store management for a while, and that front end is always near and dear to me. And too many of our pharmacies, they open the front door, hang a sign up saying I'm a pharmacy, and they just expect people are going to walk in the door, and they don't do enough to promote themselves on bringing pharmacies in. Whether it's COVID, of course, great COVID vaccines and the number of the profits that pharmacies are actually realizing from that have been great, and the traffic into the pharmacies. And that's where they also need to promote their pharmacy when the new patients are coming in. Our members are telling us all the time, I'm seeing these people coming in for vaccines, but they don't get their prescriptions here. Well, what are you doing about it? You give them a coupon, you give them anything to come back. And even prior to COVID, too many pharmacy owners are missing out on that opportunity during, as we are seeing right now with open enrollment. Market yourself as that Medicare resource center and be that place where patients can come in and figure out what's going on. I tell the story all the time. My mom a few years ago, she was going to pick her Medicare plan based upon the ladies at lunch after church, and what one of the daughters said was a plan for their mom, and we were all going to do the same thing. Well, that's not right for you, Mom. I was able to help her through that, but our pharmacies need to take an active role in that, and be that decision place. Every single day a patient is eligible for Medicare. You need to be the place to where that patient's going to go and say, what do I do? And what a great way to attract new business.
Well, and like you say, even during open enrollment, or especially during open enrollment that we're in right now, I mean, you can't turn on the TV without seeing 15 different ads trying to pull these patients away from our independent pharmacies. And yeah, we've got a program, trying to do the exact same thing, hook a member store up with an agent, have that one-on-one personal relationship, and keep these patients in the stores and give them the very best option where they're taken care of, and Joe Namath and J.J. Walker and all these other guys aren't pulling them away.
Yeah, finding that plan where it's win-win for the patient and win-win for the pharmacy.
Absolutely.
Not leaving
Right.
the chance. Yeah.
Well, and we did last year about this time. We did a panel with four pharmacies to then how they handle open enrollment, and they were all very progressive in the way that they were, working with their patients on open enrollment, and so I think it's a really good point. You just can't keep letting these opportunities walk out the door. So the the other piece that that you made me think about is just letting that whole front end walk out the door, and not giving it any attention at all. I talk a lot with pharmacists about, and I did a C article for America's Pharmacists for NCPA that came out last month in October, and it talked about the front end. And one of the things that pharmacies forget about is that the grocery store really is a huge competitor to them for the front end. And because, back in the day, or in the early days in the 60s and 70s and even early 80s, grocery just had grocery, and pharmacy had, front end had OTC HBA. And today, of course, grocery has OTC HBA. So you really are competing against the convenience. Everybody has to go to the grocery store at least once a week, typically, right? And so they have that opportunity to buy the things there. And we know that price is not the key in all cases. Price certainly can matter, but convenience can matter just as much. And so one of the things they talk about is the importance of merchandising your product in a very professional but fun, I guess. Give people a reason to look around. End caps, all of those things are very, very important, and I don't think we see enough emphasis on that, today at all in the front end side of the business. I didn't ask this, so I hate to put you on the spot, but do you have any kind of merchandising, programs at all with either one of you?
Yeah, we do. We've got, 4 merchandisers on staff that do go into member stores on a monthly basis and merchandise a section. I talked about our circular program earlier, and more times than not, that merchandiser goes hand in hand with members that are running our circular program, so they can go in and help get that section set, priced, merchandised, everything, correctly, so they're ready to rock and roll when the ad breaks.
Okay. Well, I do think it's a really important piece, and again, that's something that they don't teach in pharmacy school, right? But there's an actual science behind setting an end cap. You really, there's a lot of research that have gone into understanding the importance of end caps, how they work, and compulsive buying. I just, it's, I see this, I need it. So it is really important to have these things within arm's reach. For those of us who shop at Best Buy from time to time, you have to go through the maze to get to the register to pay, and and they've got all this stuff along the way, and that's really common in the chain world. So
well, and Brad, you remind me of something when you said that. We've been wildly successful with the dollar program that we brought to McKesson, and again, the dollar ceiling, I guess, has been broken now with all the supply issues and everything that's going on. But there's still a lot that are at a dollar price point. Some may be $1.19, $1.49, whatever the case may be. But just the excitement and the volume that you can drive, and your store looks full. For a very small investment, you can have 16 foot of a beautiful dollar program, and suddenly it looks like you're back in business. And it does create that excitement. They're going down the aisle, say, "Oh, I didn't know I could get that. Oh, I need that." So, it's just been really successful for us.
Yeah, we've got a planograms program that there's still planograms are set up for for a full size store. And a lot of stores are smaller apothecary stores, and they can't do the full planogram program. But at least the program also lists the items from 1 to whatever, how many numbers are in the category, which items you should carry. And it's frightening the number of times when you sign a store up on the program and you see They don't even have the top 10 items in the category. They are not
Right.
put in the pharmacy. They didn't bring those items in, and just getting them on that program and showing them, hey, sometimes there's dollars back. We provide dollars back to our stores too by being part of that program. Just get the right products in there, big part
Yeah.
of it.
Well, and yeah, that's absolutely right. It shocks me as well when we do an evaluation with one of our stores and we look at the top selling items and how many they don't have, and then how many of these things that they keep on the shelf that haven't sold in over a year, and not looking at the tools available to them, in the reporting. So there's so much focus on that behind the counter, and there's so much focus on inventory turns behind the counter. And of course that makes sense because prescription medications are typically a lot more expensive than front end merchandise, especially the branded stuff, right? And so you can tie up a lot of money in inventory and in the back end, but boy, you can do the same in the front end. It's really surprising how much money people tie up in inventory that isn't turning. And I would have to think that getting $10,000 or $15,000 back in cash flow would be helpful to most independent pharmacies. So so don't tie it up in stuff that doesn't sell.
Yeah. An early lesson I had, Brad, when I was in retail, I was probably still in high school, and I was taking the sale price off of a product on an end cap, and the manager said, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Well, the sale's over." He said, "We didn't sell it at full price. Why are we at the sale price? Why are we going to bring it back to full price? Let's mark it down and let's get rid of it. Let's
Right.
move the product."
Well, and that's a whole nother topic, which I've done. I've also carried last year. One is sunk cost and carrying costs. And, once and why the chains do exactly what they do. They put it on, it doesn't sell, they get it out. Eventually they either throw it away or they donate it to charity, but they don't put it in a box and store it in the back room.
Correct.
So that we could spend a long time on that conversation too. That's one near and dear to my heart.
Yep.
Well, listen, Mark, you mentioned something, and I wanted to wanted to address this, and we're going to have to wrap up here in a second. But what are you seeing with the global supply chain? I mean, I know it's disrupting everything. How is it impacting pharmacy?
Yeah, I agree. I think it has absolutely impacted everything. And I may be all wet with this, but my personal opinion, as far as our business goes, seems to have affected OTC. A lot of the HBA items, a lot of the dollar items have been impacted really, really tough to get versus the RX items. And maybe that's because RX is smaller, a whole lot more money, obviously, like we said before. But I do think it's impacted everything. And in my world, it seems to have, really impacted OTC more so than RX.
Yeah, same thing. I'm not hearing much on the RX side, but the DME side, hearing some problems there on the medical equipment side, and some of our stores too with the bigger front ends are saying, "Hey, I've got more holes than I've ever had before," and there's just not a source to bring those products in.
Yeah, so I'm in the Seattle area, and it's just amazing to me the number of cargo ships that are just sitting anchored that can't get into port.
All right.
And then I have a friend that's in the shipping industry, and he coordinates cargo all over the world. And he said, you think it's bad here out the port of Los Angeles or Long Beach, there's 120 cargo ships sitting there anchored that can't get in. So it really is. It's a fascinating. It's a terrible situation. It's it's scary, really, what we've uncovered from COVID as a result of this. But anyway, we don't have time to talk about that and solve that problem today. Are there any other things that we didn't cover? And we'll wrap up here in the next couple minutes. So is there anything else that either one of you would like to talk about that I didn't ask about?
I'd just like to mention on the buy side, from when you were talking about the back behind the counter, the prescriptions, the brand generics, there's a lot of drive these days from pharmacy owners to get a lower brand cost of goods, and that just doesn't really, it's all just cost dollar shifting that's going on there. And then too many pharmacy owners are making a decision to switch wholesalers, switch buying groups, chasing a brand cost of goods that it's not all there. It's a huge math problem. Buying pharmaceuticals is a big math problems on the generic side, the brand side, the cost of goods, the discounts, the not discounts, the rebates. And it's really important that they understand all of those parts before they make a decision. And if you don't understand all of those pieces and parts, get with somebody that does, somebody that can really give you that analysis on that. It's not just simply, hey, I got a lower brand cost of goods, this is a better deal. And I see too many owners making those decisions, tying themselves up in a 2 or 3 year agreement on something that's not good for their pharmacy, or they're following somebody else's advice who's got a totally different pharmacy. Kind of like my example with my mom and the Medicare Part D is,
Sure.
I'm going to go do what somebody else did because it's right for their pharmacy. Well, every pharmacy is different. Every pharmacy buys different. They all need to know what's best for their pharmacy.
Yeah, I would add, and I know it's cliche, but would be remiss by not mentioning it. We've all heard get into politics or get out of pharmacy. Times are really, really tough right now. We all understand that. Long-term sustainable change is only going to come from legislative reform. We believe so. Everybody, and we talked about it earlier, how fragmented everything is. The only way we're going to have true change if we're all getting involved, we're all pulling together. We're going to go all in 22, like never before, and try to impact that legislative reform. We'll see, how much impact we can have. But, the point is you can't bury your head in the sand. You can't be behind the counter not willing to do anything else. You got to get involved. That's the only way anything's going to change for all of us.
I couldn't agree more. And you can't just complain.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, and I'll just make a comment on this, one of the things that makes this change difficult is when you try to describe to people how this really works, they go, nah, there's no way it could be. It's impossible. You're not telling me the whole story. I mean, I've listened to my friends when I've tried to describe this, and they're like, seriously, no way.
You're getting paid less than what you pay for it, getting reimbursed less. Yeah, really. Right.
Yeah. And I think it's so insane that it's an uphill battle to get politicians or people to actually sit down and recognize, no, it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it is insane, and you have to do something about it. So all of us have to get involved and participate in or this change is going to happen. So I appreciate that part, Mark. Okay, well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for Climb. We really appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back in 2022 at some point.
Sounds great.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thank you.